I want you to listen to the goals of 1941, something that was written by Stuart Chase. And the Obama administration used a lot of the words of Stuart Chase. Remember, his second campaign was "The Road We Are Traveling." Do you remember that? His second campaign used that slogan a lot, "The Road We Are Traveling." And what did Biden use? Biden used "Build Back Better." Well, that's the World Economic Forum. But if you look at the goals of the World Economic Forum, and then you look at the goals of Stuart Chase in a book called "The Road We Are Traveling," they sound familiar. Now, in this book, they talk about a managerial revolution, that things just need to be managed. We don't need all these messy elections and everything else. We just need a managerial revolution. And they thought originally that that was going to be fascism or communism. But then fascism and communism got a bad name in the 1930s, so they had to change it. And they didn't know what to call it. And so they called it free enterprise into X. Now, what is the goal of the Great Reset? The goal of the Great Reset is to change capitalism, to change the free enterprise into something called stakeholder capitalism. Don't make no mistake, it's not capitalism. It's statism. And the state doesn't own the companies, but the state takes over the role of managing a lot of companies. I want to go through and tell me if this hasn't been done verbatim, and this does not read like it did 5 years ago. Free enterprise into System X, a strong centralized government. Look at what they're doing right now with the voting rights. Look what they're doing. What are they doing? They are going against the Constitution and trying to federalize all of the elections. There's no better example today of a strong centralized government than what's going on today every single day.
And they're trying to use this Texas Democratic walkout today in combination with a Biden speech to try to bring that issue home.
Yeah, and they're going to do their best. By the way, you want to talk about a strong centralized government. On page 9 of Biden's conservation plan, there are 15 governors now who are standing up and saying, wait a minute, this is a land grab. It's the 30 by 30 plan and the 50 by 50. The federal government wants to own 30% of all land in America by 2030.
What are they at now? Do we know?
No, I don't.
Well, it's because they own a lot of the West.
They own a lot of the West.
Yeah,
but that's
mostly it.
The West. They want 30% of all of the land and then 50% of all the land. Why? Well, listen to this. They also want control of banking, credit, and security exchanges by the government. You effectively have that through the Fed. It's a public-private partnership. Credit, they are now taking over. This is 1941. Stuart Chase, the guy who coined the term the New Deal. The underwriting of employment by the government. Aren't we seeing that right now, kind of? You're not working.
Oh, totally. I mean,
Yeah.
they've now released this program where they're sending you monthly checks for your child credit.
The underwriting of Social Security by the government, old age pensions, unemployment insurance, and the like. Listen to this one. The underwriting of food, housing, and medical care by the government. The United States is already experimenting with providing these essentials. Other nations are far along the road. Food, housing, medical care.
All in part.
Yeah.
Not 100%, but partially already done.
You're hearing people talk about
expanding all the time.
Yes, all the time. To food and housing. You can't have a basic living wage without a house that goes with it. Look at what's happening in Oakland, where they're saying no more single housing units. this is moving quickly. And I want to continue down this because it is astounding how far the left has come in about 173 days. They are closing this deal on us, and Americans need to stand up. Stuart Chase, who coined the term the New Deal, he was a big economic advisor to FDR at the end of the war. This was in the early 1940s while we were still going, but it looked like the tide was going to turn into our favor. Began to ponder, okay, so what's next? We know fascism, which a lot of people in Washington at the time, they liked fascism. They liked communism. They liked central control. This was before all of the atrocities were really known. Once the atrocities became known, that's when people started saying, okay, well, that's not going to work. That's not good, because they knew that Americans and the people world over would be horrified if you said, you know what, let's become, a dictatorship, kind of like Mussolini, Hitler. Let's go communist. They knew that wouldn't sell. And so they said, we have to come up with a new system, System X. And they said names are thrown around, socialism, state capitalism, communism, fascism, but they mean nothing and will only lead to confusion. That's why we're using the term System X. Free enterprise turned into System X. Now, what does System X look like? And see if this doesn't sound exactly like the Great Reset. An executive arm growing at the expense of the legislature and judicial arms. Control of banking, credit, security exchanges by the government, underwriting of employment by the government, the underwriting of Social Security and pensions, unemployment insurance, the underwriting of food, housing, and medical care. All of these things, we are now on the road, and you are hearing people say, we need guaranteed housing, we need guaranteed food, we need a basic universal income. The use of deficit spending to finance all of these underwritings. The annual balanced budget has lost its old-time sanctity. The abandonment of gold in favor of managed currencies. The control of foreign trade by the government. The control of natural resources. The control of energy sources, hydroelectric, coal, petroleum, natural gas. The control of transportation, railway, highway, airway, waterway. The control of agricultural production. The control of labor organizations, healthy taxation with special emphasis on estates and incomes of the rich. Not much taking over of property or industries in the old socialistic sense. The formula appears to be control without ownership. It's interesting to recall some of the formulas used, blah, 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 blah. So this is the Great Reset. This is what Stuart Chase said in the 1940s is the road in which we are traveling. And he outlines that it was a good thing. Let me give you a couple of things here that he said people are going to bring up as problems. One, monetary problems, because you just can't spend that much money. He said, what are we going to do with all that gold in Kentucky? Like it exists. If it proves to be useless as a money base, what base can be substituted? Do we need a base at all? After all, Germany seemed to get along without one. Oh. Will money primarily become just a bookkeeping device to move goods? You notice that's what they're saying now about printing money. We're not printing money. We're just digitizing. And it's all just on the books. It's not even real. And that's what's happening to us with money. It's not real anymore.
Ties very closely into modern monetary theory as well.
Exactly right.
What does it matter? We'll just keep printing it. It'll help us keep track of stuff, but it's not really important.
And as long as we have control, the government says, and we can tell corporations what to make and what not to make, then we can control it. That's the theory. He also says political problems. Now, listen to this, and I want you to keep in mind. Do you remember what Joe Biden said? I think at least once in his State of the Union, he addressed it obliquely, but he also met with all of the TV anchors, the approved ones, before the State of the Union. And what did he say? Do you remember? What did he ask? He said, the big challenge in front of us is to see if a democracy, for as good as it's been, if a democracy can compete in this modern world of authoritarianism, because they can make decisions and move quickly, and they're going to bury us. And that's really the challenge ahead of us. Listen to this. Political problems. This is 1940s. Political problems. What changes in our political institutions will be necessary to make democracy more efficient and more capable of swiftly meeting the great economic decisions which government must make in the years before us? The threat of competition in efficiency by the totalitarian states will hang over us for a long time, and muddling through will not be good enough. This is the same thing. And it's either one hell of a coincidence that the Great Reset and this, two different authors, two different times, match exactly what the United States has been going through and we've been arguing about since the 1940s. Here's the thing. You are not being asked. The decisions are being made right now, and you are not being asked. That's why this is stakeholder capitalism. Well, where am I? Where's my voice? I'm a stakeholder. Your voice is being represented by those who represent you, that you elected in your government. That is the honest-to-God answer from the World Economic Forum. Your voice is being heard by your politicians. Our politicians all over the world are not listening to the people. They're not listening. And we are being told to reject all the old voices. We're to reject our history because we're all going to be one. So reject those hate mongers of Washington and Jefferson. They were old, outdated ideas. I always go to Churchill because he's one of my favorites, and he is, he is a split personality. In the West, he's a hero. In the East, with India, he's a monster. So which one is he? Well, he's both. He's both. It is the fight, the individual fight between good and evil that is in all of us. And where do you end up in the end? And did Winston Churchill do more good than bad? We can't reject people for mistakes that they made, especially in Churchill's case, where he admits the mistake and it was like, yeah, I was probably all wrong on that one. I don't know what it was happening to me. I believe in redemption, but this new world has no redemption. You either comply and you comply fully or you're out. Well, I'm sorry, I don't comply, nor will I. And I know we shall overcome. We will. Because if God does exist, these are his rights, not ours. And he will not have a proud and unrighteous people hold those and to protect them for others. If we're not protecting those rights for everyone, well, then we're going to lose our rights and our right to stand there. But we are being, make no mistake, we are being sold, bound and chained to an enemy that has killed over 100 million of our own people in the last 70 years. China is the world's greatest mass murderer. And we are being sold down the river. They are the people that in 1960s had the Cultural Revolution, which is exactly like this. This is how it started. And it ended up with a mass slaughter and the destruction of all history, even all families and family genealogy. Nobody in China really knows their past a few grandparents because it was all erased, because it didn't matter, because you as an individual didn't matter. And every time we buy a product from Nike or Apple or we get on Facebook, we should remember you are being sold to China by these companies. BlackRock, which is behind the ESG thing, they're sitting as, Sith lords in the Treasury. They're sitting there as Sith lords with our vice president and president. They are the economic advisors. They and the central banks around the world with ESG, wake up. You have a choice. You are either going to be part of the collective, and whatever you think doesn't matter. They will make the decisions for you. A lot of people right now who are sitting out and taking the unemployment and won't go to work, that's what you're voting for. Your actions are voting right now. I will be compliant and I will be part of the collective. I want someone to make the decisions for me. I want someone just to take care of me. But I warn you, you are living off of the fumes of freedom. Your freedom will not look like this once it's completely gone and there are no fumes left. Your life will not be a sweet little paradise where you can play games all day. Here's what we need to do as people. A, wake up, stand up, and don't stand up against things per se. Stand up for the Bill of Rights. When you're going in to stand up against CRT, you call it by its name. It's evil. It's evil. And here's how I know. Because it rejects redemption. It says that white people are inherently bad and they have to atone, and they'll never actually be able to atone for sins that they didn't commit. It's evil. But what's more important is that I'm standing here as an American, not a Chinese citizen. I'm standing here as an American. And America has a few rules, and those rules are in our Bill of Rights. And I will stand up. You never, ever surrender to lies.